So every time there is a case, it'll be announced, so you'll know. But I gotta say, I hate this light. I look terrible.
I don't know why. You've only been up since how long?
I know.
I mean, if you're going to work 12 hours a day, I mean, don't expect to look like, you know,
Dave,
somebody.
don't you know your correct answer, your correct response to that is no, you look fine.
No, you do look fine. But I'll be honest with you. This summer, you had me worried.
Yeah, I was tired
You
this
look,
summer.
you look tired. It looked like it's getting to you. You look much better than you did during the summer.
Thank you.
So we're all waiting for the magic bullet to come here, as
Yeah.
well as the election, as well as the inauguration. What's um what's going to be our number if we have to close?
Well, that's the thing right now. There isn't a number. They're looking at so many different factors now that they're really moving away from an exact number. So it's more about the impact that the community health is having on the schools. And when it reaches a point where the impact is either creating an unsafe environment in the schools or it's impacted staff in schools so much that you can't operate, that's when you would need to close.
Well, I hope you can hold on another couple of weeks.
Me too.
Hold on. I mean, even if after that, if we have to open up late, that's not as bad as closing now.
Yeah.
Hi, Martha.
Hi, Martha.
Not looking
Can you
too.
hear us, Martha?
Well, she's still off.
Hi, Edith.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi, Edith.
Good. How are you?
Good.
1, 2, 3, 4. We need one more body. Should I say hi, Marga, or just not be a wise guy? Hi, Margaret.
How are you tonight?
I'm well, thank you. How are you
I
doing?
don't know how Marga ended up on my Zoom. I guess I need to go in and explore and do some changes on that.
It's a good conversation piece. So, Kelly, I think we need one more.
Yes.
I haven't heard from Susanna, nor Catherine.
So we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with Celeste's connection, and she's not able to speak. So she will text me if she needs to participate at all. And Kathy, one thing she said is that you will need to do roll call.
Got it.
Before you start, because we're gonna have an executive session tonight.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we will.
Give me the fax number again, please.
Oh, now that's a harder question tonight. Last time I had my business card right in front of me. Hold on. See if I can pull that up. Okay, the fax number is 429-3379.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We got 7:02, Kathy.
We can't go without a quorum, correct?
No.
Susanna's having trouble accessing her email. Can someone send me the Zoom link via my Gmail or Yukon address?
I can do that.
Oh, thank you, Edith. Oh, she said Celeste is rescuing her.
Oh, okay. Would it be helpful to text anyone? Can
Let's see if Susanna gets on.
Okay.
Kelly's going to be late, and Rebecca said she would join us if we needed a quorum, but otherwise, no. I prefer not to ask her if Susanna can
Okay.
board. Celeste said Suzanne will be on in a minute.
There she is.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Great. All right. Welcome to tonight's December 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Mansfield Board of Education. My name's Kathy Ward, Board Chair. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. In accordance with Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7B and social distancing guidelines recommended by the CDC to slow the community spread of COVID-19, this meeting is physically closed to the public. The public may view the meeting live at townhallstreams.com/town or on Charter Spectrum Cable Channel 191. Public comment will be accepted by email at mboesupt@mansfieldct.org, either before the meeting or prior to the second hearing for visitors. Comments may also be sent via USPS mail, care of the Mansfield Board of Education, 4 South Eagleville Road, Mansfield, CT. Edith, would you read our mission statement, please?
It is the mission of the Mansfield Board of Education, in partnership with the Mansfield community, to ensure that all children acquire the knowledge, skills, and attributes essential for personal excellence in learning, life, and work within our global community.
Great, thank you, Edith. Now we're on to approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 5, 2020 special meeting workshop?
So moved.
Thank you, Edith. Do I have a second?
Second it, or,
Thank you, Susanna. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you, that's unanimous. Now may I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 12, 2020 regular meeting?
So moved.
motion to approve the minutes of November 12th.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Edith. All in favor, raise your hand, please. That's unanimous. Thank you. And may I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 19, 2020 special meeting workshop?
So moved.
Thank you, Edith. Do I have a second? Thank you, David. All in favor, raise your hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to the first hearing for visitors. And I don't know if we can communicate with Celeste. Did we have any comments coming, Kelly, that you know?
We did not.
We did not, thank you. And I don't believe we had any communications.
Correct.
Thank you. Any additions to the present agenda? Committee reports. We were going to talk about the Personnel Committee, but unfortunately, we can't move forward on that tonight. So there's no report there. Information, presentations, and actions. Kelly, you want to introduce us to our new communications specialist?
I do. Thank you. I'm very pleased this evening to introduce Margaret Chady to you. Margaret started her position with us a couple of weeks ago and is already showing to be an invaluable support to the work that we do. I wanted to give you a little bit about Margaret's background and allow her an opportunity to say hello to you, and we can talk a little bit about some of the work that she's already done. Margaret is a graduate of Simmons University, where she has a bachelor's in communications and has worked a great deal in and around the local area. She has worked extensively with the Connecticut Farm Bureau Association, most recently, and with the Windham Public Schools. And I'm guessing, Margaret, we have probably seen some of your work also from the Farmer's Cow and some of the work that you've done supporting that organization for many years as well. Margaret has, goodness, I didn't add it up, but I'm thinking it's better than 30 years of experience in communications. And the fact that most recently she worked in the Windham Public Schools allows her to jump right in working with us, because she certainly understands school systems and the work that we do. Margaret and her family also own Westford Hill Distillers in Ashford, and you may know that product as well. And so she's a longtime resident of the area, and I'm very delighted to introduce you this evening to Margaret Chady. And I'll let Margaret share a little bit about herself with you.
Thank you, Superintendent Lyman, for those kind words. Chairman Ward and members of the Board of Education, thank you for the opportunity to be before you this evening. I want to say a special shout out to my friend Ms. Everett. She and I crossed paths when I was an Ashford school parent and a longtime PTO volunteer when Susanna was working in the school district there. So it was nice to see her smiling face the first time I jumped on one of your meetings. This is a great opportunity to work for a wonderful community. You know, as someone who lives in Ashford, you know, Mansfield has certainly been part of my sphere, and it's been exciting to watch the community grow and expand. And of course, Mansfield has always been one of the shining stars among school districts. Both of my boys also attended E.O. Smith, so I'm familiar also with that school district. So it's really been an interesting, not quite a month that I've been working with Kelly and Celeste and Kelly's leadership team in getting to know sort of the intricacies of the Mansfield Public School system, but it has been great, you know, working closely with their leadership team. It was fun to sort of hit the ground running the first week with coordinating some publicity and taking some photos in all of our Veterans Day ceremonies, you know, 2 days after I arrived. That was a great way to get out and really see, you know, what was going on at Southeast School, for example. And then Shamim and her team also then organizing these great resource fairs that were, you know, these pop-up shops to provide resources last week. And so that was another project that was fun to roll up my sleeves and get to know some of the folks who are in the schools and working to reach out to families. As Kelly mentioned, I spent 3.5 years in the Windham Public School District, and although we certainly serve a much different kind of student in Mansfield, I think, than we were in Windham, the importance of family engagement and making sure that families really feel connected to the community is something that I feel is very important, and that we need to really use every communication tool we can to engage them and make them feel like they know what's happening. And likewise, I also believe that your residents, the taxpayers who are investing in our wonderful kids in the school district, also should get as excited about what's going on in the schools as the school staff and families are. And so I think that really just making sure that every little thing that happens somehow gets some play. And so that's really what I've been trying to concentrate on the last few weeks, is sort of learning about about the processes and how to engage with some of those great news stories, and then working with Superintendent Lyman to figure out how we can push that information out. This is part of my job, as you know. I've also been getting to know the town. I've been trying to visit with department heads and have meetings about what their communications needs are and how we might do a better job of connecting elements of the community. And this is another piece, especially as it relates to the Board of Education, is if we know that there's an opportunity for the schools to plug in something great that's going on the town side, or with the library, or with the natural resources initiatives, or the community center, how do we optimize these resources and make sure that, you know, we're collaborating together as much as possible? So one of the things I pride myself on is kind of being glue. I'm a little bit of a networker that way, and I really always love to, you know, just sort of to say to someone, well, did you know that over here they're doing this? Maybe we can plug into that. So that's, you know, how I've been spending my first month, and Kelly and I have met several times, and we have some plans for moving forward that I really hope will make an impact, because that's what this is all about. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you.
Thanks, Margaret. I think the board has heard me speak often about the challenges that communicating brings to anybody in a positions such as ours. And although there are several things that we've undertaken in the last couple of years, Margaret is going to help us beef up the newsletter communications, both externally to our residents and internally to faculty and staff, and help us with a presence on social media, all of which she's gotten started. Also keeping our website up to date and filled with current pictures and events. So very, very important tasks and incredibly critical to our work. And so, again, I'm very grateful to have Margaret on board and appreciate the fact that you've supported this position.
Well, welcome, Margaret. You mentioned that this is a great opportunity for you, but man, oh man, is it a great opportunity for us to have you on board. And where were you 2 years ago? No, it's delightful to have you here, and we really appreciate it. And I know Kelly's very, very enthusiastic about your collaboration already at this point. So greatly appreciate it and look forward to working with you.
Thank you, and we look forward to the communication going out about the next steps on the new school. You did the heavy lifting by getting it passed in the referendum, but now we have a lot of work to do to keep people excited about what that's going to mean to the community.
Agreed. Thank you. Yes. Susanna, did you want to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say how lovely it is to see you. Welcome aboard, and I'm just glad that our paths have. So excited that we have the opportunity for our paths to cross again. So what a great resource you are, and we're really just thrilled. So that's very exciting. I'm also going to take this opportunity to say I'm just having all kinds of technical issues this evening, so I apologize in advance for popping in and out.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret, very much.
Welcome.
All right, that brings us to the MMS roof projects update and educational specs. Kelly?
Yes, yep, thank you. And we have Alan Corson on this evening. He's going to help me with this presentation as well. I want to set the stage for you first. There is a packet of materials that was sent to you today that would have been handouts that we would have provided to you this evening. So I hope you had a chance to see that email. I'm going to put all of the items that were in that email on the screen, so don't worry if you haven't seen them all. But I want to start with explaining with you exactly what your task is this evening, and let you know that this is a task that is required anytime you are accepting state grants for a construction project. And so this is the same process that you're going to be asked to go through for the new elementary school in January, but we'll talk about that with the next agenda item. So let me just give you that background by sharing this document with you. And you should see on the screen right now a form from the Department of Administrative Services. Yeah, I think this is the wrong form though. Nope. This is the change order form. Let me just pull up the right one. Sorry about that. I must have had a couple in my downloads. There we go. Too many things on my screen right now. Okay, can you now see a request for review of final plans form?
Yes.
Okay, so form SCG 042, and in this form you'll see that it is a certification. What you and the school building committee are asked to do is clearly stated right here. You are asked to certify that the final plans and project manuals and that the professional cost estimates have been reviewed and approved for this project. So this is your opportunity to say, do the ed specs that we created and these final plans accomplish what we're seeking? In other words, are those final plans going to allow you to meet the goals defined in your ed specs? And can you confirm the cost of the project based on the cost estimates? So the other documents that you've been provided in the handout include, and I'm sorry this is a little bit wonky, but this is the best way for me to show this all to you. Let's see if I can close out of this one. Of course, they're not popping up in the order I'd like. Here we go. So you can see the Mansfield Middle School roof replacement and photovoltaic project. And these are, or this packet of information is the introductory pages to the project plan And in your packet, your board packet that was mailed out last Friday, you have a copy of the ed specs for the roof replacement and for the photovoltaic system. And while we don't expect that you will do a one-to-one match of everything, because a lot of this is very technical, these plans are being provided to you so that you can see that the entire roof is scheduled, excuse me, not the entire roof that is now the flat roof is scheduled to be replaced. We're not replacing, of course, this is considered a partial roof replacement because we're not replacing the roof over the main entrance and the library. That's a metal roof that does not need replacement. So you can see on the drawings here the portion of the roof that will be replaced, and you can see here the photovoltaic layout. And further in this document, it identifies for you all of the other detailed pages that are included in the full packet that must be submitted to the Office of School Construction and Grants Review for their final approval. And so, again, your task tonight is to just certify that these plans exist and that they, in fact, comply with the ed specs that you've created. I'm going to stop there before I show you the cost estimates and just see if you have any questions or to see if Alan wants to share any additional information with you.
Yeah, I have a question. So we're doing, I'm gathering that the roof is like 98,000 square feet and we're doing 90,000. Am I right? So we're doing.
That's correct.
It's around 89,000. Yeah.
Oh, it's an 89,000? Because it says something, we weren't doing 8, but we're doing 90. So I added that and just made 98,000. So I don't know where the 89, so it's 89,000.
Martha, I think you'll see in the ed specs it's identified as 90, but when they did the final calculations, it may have come out closer to 89.
Yeah, okay. And the only page we have, which we can probably cover this later, is that has funds on it, like on this page that that Celeste sent us, like pay the C2 code information, C1 code information, and the A2 were not included. Those two pages weren't included in this packet that I can see. Maybe it's, we got E2 and we got E1 and we got the cover sheet and we got the overall roof plan that I can understand. But anyway, so the total cost looks here like $276,000. Is that true?
So hold on a minute. I'll pull up the cost estimates in a minute, but let me just.
It says subtotal. I'm sorry, 2.8 million. I'm sorry, it's 2.8 million. I read over a column, and I know we put in $75,000 left over from our budget. I didn't know where that showed. So those are briefly my questions. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just go back to your question about the materials. So I'm going to bring that document back up that I just had up. This is the document that you've received. And again, it is not the full set of technical plans. It is the overview. So is this what you were referring to? The cover sheet, the code information, and so on?
Yeah, we have that. Yeah. And then.
Yes, but you're correct. You do not have every single page because most of it is technical.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to describe it, but the installation, like blueprint kinds of technical. So what you do have are the summaries, right? That again, showing the overall portion of the roof to be replaced and so on.
Yeah. Okay. It didn't say that things were omitted, so I didn't know if it was on purpose.
Good question.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Are there any other questions about the ed specs and the plans? Okay, let me share the cost estimate with you next. Which unfortunately I think I'm going to have to go to shut it down. Let's go here. Whoops, wrong one. Sorry guys, I have so many things on my screen, I can't follow everything.
No worries. Gives me great comfort to know that
Does
I'm not
it?
the one that
It's not giving me comfort.
difficulties. Well, it gives me comfort that I'm not the only one with transition issues when I'm doing these meetings. It's always hard to find stuff.
There we go. Hopefully you can all still see this. No, you can't. It's telling me that you can't.
No, we can't.
Yeah. So if I do it this way.
Take your time. We're fine.
Now you can.
There we go.
Okay, so this is the other document that was in the handout packet, and this is the cost estimate for the total project. And as Martha mentioned, the grand total for the project, including all of the fees and contingencies, is $2.8 million. Remember, this is before reimbursement. And I'll just scroll back up so that you can see all of this. David, I don't know if you want to share anything either about the discussion at the school roof building committee meeting this morning.
David was on mute. I'm not sure he's off of mute.
Okay.
Hi, Kelly, this is Alan.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Alan.
I'll just share with you that with this process, once we have the board's approval, we're waiting on the state then to get their approval and a project number for this. And as soon as we get that, then we'll be going out to RFP, RFQ for a roofing contractor to get that in line to then plan on getting the roof done this summer.
Kelly, I had just a question. Do we go through a cost estimating process similar to what we did with the school building committee?
So this project has been costed out already, and it does not need to go through as complicated a process as we use for the new school, which requires multiple cost estimators and finding an average. This process is a little bit simplified. And so part of the bid process will be looking for bidders that come in at or below this cost estimate. I think the architects developed this cost estimate based on their experiences. They do a lot of roofs, and the two cost estimators is not required for a project of this size.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Susanna, I'm sorry, let Suzanne and then Edith.
Just a quick question, and I apologize. You've answered this 600 times. What's our reimbursement rate do we anticipate?
Yeah, we won't know the final reimbursement rate until they review the project, but it's over 70%. I remember it to be in the range of about 72 to 73%. I think one time it maybe was suggested it could be as high as 75. I'm not positive that it's quite that high.
Okay, but somewhere in that general, we won't know until we give them we approve all of these things. So we'll find out, right? This is part of the process. But I just wanted a ballpark. Thank you for that reminder.
Right. So Martha, just going back to your question then about monies that had been set aside, those would not show up in the cost estimate. That would come as we sort of pay the bill for the work.
But it wouldn't, it's not shown as a deduction from this.
No, because this is a project cost estimate. In other words, what does it cost to do the roof? Not the cost to the municipality in that way.
And the other question I had is, I know insurance is on the second line. Our town's insurance doesn't cover this. It's $18,000 of insurance. I'm just curious about, we have to have extra insurance for this project, I'm assuming, or a different kind of insurance.
I think Kelly got frozen.
I would understand it that that's the insurance the contractor is going to carry for the job. So for them to insure their work.
Oh, okay. I just thought maybe our town had such inclusive policies that it would carry through to there and wouldn't have to get extra insurance. But anyway, just didn't understand how that worked. Thank you.
Kelly, are you with us? Kelly?
Well, I'm back.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, it looks like I froze up. Sorry about that, everybody.
Is that or you fell
know if you
asleep? I
heard
wasn't
any-
sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard any of my answer about insurance. Okay, so this is different than the liability insurance. This is insurance for the project. Completion, problems with the project, that sort of thing. That's my understanding. Alan, do you know any more about that?
Alan did explain it. So
Okay, good. Okay.
thank you. Thank you. Edith, did you have a question?
I did. I was just wondering about the scheduling of this over the summer. Do you guys feel that you will be able to get it done comfortably in the interim period? Okay.
Do you want to address that?
Yeah, this should start right at the beginning of school close, and then it should not be a problem to get it done during the roughly 2 months in the summertime. Not that anyone hopes for it, but if somehow school did shut down early, then they would try to start it earlier. So, but that's not what anyone would hope for, but that would be what we tried to do.
Thank you. I just want to make sure Dave is still with us so that we can have a quorum.
I'm not sure that he is. Oh, wait. He's coming back. I hope. There he is.
Excellent. Great. You with us, Dave? David?
Am I the only one that got blanked out there?
Okay, as long as you're back. Great.
I'm back. I guess it was just my system.
Yeah. Dave, I had mentioned, I think, as you were having some connectivity problem, that there was a roof building committee meeting this morning. I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to say about that. The building committee went through the same process this morning.
Yeah, I listened to everything. We asked questions. It all looked very well detailed and laid out. Everything looked just as it's supposed to.
All right, Kelly, is there anything else that we need to go over before we move
No,
on?
not unless you have any other questions. Again, all you're doing is certifying that the plans and the cost estimates meet your ed specs and essentially your budget.
Okay. Edith, would you read a motion for us, please?
Yes. The board hereby certifies that the final plans and project manuals for the MMS roof and photovoltaic system as prepared for bidding and dated December 2nd, 2020, and the professional cost estimate completed in accordance with level 3 of ASTM International Standard E1557, Standard Classification of Building Elements and Related Site Work, Uniformat 2 for this project, dated December 2nd, 2020, have been reviewed and approved for this project on the dates shown above.
Thank you, Edith. Do I have a second? Edith has made the motion and we need a second. Thank you, Susanna. Hi, Kelly Zimmerman. So is everyone clear? Is there any further discussion about this motion, the approval? All right, all in favor, raise your hand, please. I'm sorry, could you do that one more time? I wasn't. All in favor? All right. Kelly Zimmerman, are you going to vote with us, or?
I didn't hear the complete motion, so should I just abstain?
Abstain, yes. Thank you very much. So we have one abstention, and the vote is approved. The motion is approved. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone on all the work that you've done on this. It's very exciting, and it's great to have this moving forward.
Thanks.
And thank you to you too, David, for all your work. Greatly appreciated. Now on to the new element.
Well, I'm very lucky that Kelly does so much of it.
We know. New elementary school project update and ed specs.
Right. So it's interesting that these two actions have come on the same evening. So what you've just gone through with certifying the roof project is what you will be asked to do in early January for the new elementary school. In order to do that, we wanted to make sure that the ed specs truly were reflective of where the project has developed. So let's just take a step back and think about the ed spec process for a moment. Last school year, when more than last school year, I guess it was, back before the referendum, when we were proposing a new elementary school, we held a tremendous number of meetings and gatherings to identify what we wanted in a new school. And from that, we created a lengthy set of educational specifications. This packet, as revised, or with the proposed revisions at least, was included in your board packet as well. And this packet should look familiar to you because you have seen it on about 8 or 9 previous meetings. Each time the architects met with another group and massaged a proposed or a preliminary draft plan, they made some revisions to the ed specs, which you had the opportunity to approve. So we get a preliminary plan and the project goes to referendum and passes, and then we hire the architects to create the real building. And now we also need to consider the net zero elements of this building and look more carefully at the site. So as all of that work was done, looking very carefully at the site at Southeast School and identifying how to ensure that this building met our net zero standards, the design of the building changed. It changed, as you all know, quite significantly from the proposed single-story building that we saw almost 2 years ago now to the 2-story building that's been presented to you for this final plan. So we wanted to make sure that the ed specs had once again been updated because there were some things that we just had to change, that we couldn't, like for example, the 2-story element of it, right? It has to be 2 stories in order to, or it's best to be 2 stories to meet the site and the net zero, for example. Well, you know, or may remember from our early conversations that then requires things like elevators and stairways. And some of that takes up more space, and also the configuration of the spaces once we laid out the plan, where we thought we might have had, for example, 3 breakout spaces for children and teachers outside of classrooms. There ended up in the hallways being room for only 2 breakout spaces. And so what we've done in Appendix B is summarize all of those changes that were made now that we understand all of the constraints of the space and the building design. What I can tell you, and we can go through these changes if you'd like, I would refer you to page 49 of the ed specs, which is where the Appendix B details are provided. But what I can tell you is that the final design that we're working on now meets the goals that we've established for students and the goals that we've established for staff and the goals that we've established for energy use. And so I'm very, very happy with this building, even though it may not be the exact building that we designed in our ed specs initially. It is the building that meets our goals. And so what I'm asking you to do tonight is to review the changes that are in these ed specs and to once again approve the revisions to the ed specs. There is one other element that I want to talk about, and then I'll take your questions, and that's Appendix A. At the beginning of the ed specs, we describe the enrollment projections for this building, and you will probably recall that last fall when we did enrollment projections, the projections came back slightly differently than they had the previous year, and because both the square footage allowance and the reimbursement rate is dependent upon projections, the state allows you to use the highest projection rate in a 10-year period, and therefore last fall the state allowed us to adjust our enrollment projections, and so I've included the letter from the state making that allowance because that is different than what's on page 11 of the ed specs. So those are the two appendices and the changes that are being requested. Do you have any questions about them?
Kelly, maybe I'm thinking backwards here, jumping the gun. Looking at the enrollment numbers and the letter from the state, they are different now. Are we to have the state come back and say the letter they dated November 24 is no longer accurate? Do you know what I'm asking?
I do know what you're asking, and I don't believe so. I believe that the, well, I know for a fact that the grant proposal that was submitted to the legislature and voted on by the legislature includes the enrollment projection that was agreed to last fall. And so if you look at the actual legislative motion for this building, you will see that it's for a 600 pupil elementary school.
So anything that's out of our control after that, that's the way it is.
That's my understanding. Of course, I've never built a brand new school before, so that's my understanding.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, I guess we're good.
We have another.
Oh, Martha.
Yeah, no, I have some concerns, and you know I've had these for a while, and I still have them. I just think that this classroom sizes are so small that they don't preclude like pandemic or other virus transmissions. And the research I've done from Education Week is that a room that's over 900 square feet can really fit in 12 kids, and that's not even counting instructors. And so I'm very concerned about that. And also with such small room sizes, classroom sizes, that we're looking at what the teaching style and the learning style is now or in the next couple of years. But it seems, I've been on the board a long time, so it seems that things change, and looping might come back into style, or less emphasis on grade levels. I've read that that's going to be something people are looking at a lot. And so I just think we may be locking ourselves into really small rooms. And I know we have better airflow and that sort of thing, but I am very concerned for the adults in the classroom. Nobody has really done studies on how kids are transmitting viruses. They might not even have a runny nose or a fever, anything. But so I just think that these really small classrooms are not going to work out in the long run. So I'm very, very concerned about that, and I have been. And all of the reading I've been doing since then has not changed my mind. So just saying that.
And I think your concerns were questioned by members of the school building committee early on in the pandemic. The 800 and 900 square feet for classrooms comes from the guidelines from the Office of School Construction. And so we do not have much flexibility there. We did check with them as early as last April and continue to check in with them that they are not making any adjustments to those sizes. I will also tell you that our elementary class sizes now are very similar to the numbers or the amount of square footage in the new building. Not every classroom is 800 or 900 square feet, of course, but they are within that 800 to 900 square foot range. And currently we are able to house more than 12 students in classrooms, maintaining the social distance that's needed. So I share concerns about making sure we're building a building that meets the needs for the long term. But I do continue to believe that there are many elements of this building that are going to support the flexibility and changing needs over time to a greater degree than our current buildings do. Of course, we can never build in anticipation of what we don't know is coming, right?
No, I know, but I do not hold the state as an exemplar of what we're supposed to be doing. I just, wherever that's why I asked for holding on this for a year, just to see how this is going to work out, because all these different revisions we've done were all pre-pandemic. Nobody had any idea. And I'm just maybe overly cautious, but in my naivete, I thought when this all came out in March that, it'll be done, we'll be finished and out of this virus by Memorial Day. Well, now I need to say which Memorial Day. So anyway, I am really, really pessimistic about the small class sizes.
So Martha, I think something overarching as well is whenever we're designing like a safety plan for the school or looking at things where we're kind of looking overall at overall hazards, and pandemic flus have always been a part of that. I think having the circulation and the UV, the way that whole circulation is going to be happening is like a really important element for any kind of respiratory virus and transmission. And I agree. I think it's impossible for us to plan for every crisis that could occur. But I think that if our overall safety management plan is kind of taking into account all of the different hazards that like FEMA presents that schools should be considerate of, as long as we're being mindful of that, which it sounds like the building committee has been, then I'm pretty confident we're doing as much upfront as we can be to mitigate and help some of those unknown risks that could happen down the road.
Oh yeah, Kelly, states are closing down eating outside now. So, this virus seems to have a life and another life and another life. So I'm extremely concerned that we're submitting adults in the building, particularly, and students to a situation that maybe if we held off for a year, we'd know more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Any other comments? Susanna, no?
I was just going to say, I do know, I also feel like I have not taken a deep dive as much as I should, but in terms of what I've reviewed, the flexibility of spaces and the larger spaces in the building will also afford us some real wiggle room that we certainly don't have right now, and I feel confident about that too, to support whatever is coming. But that all of that flexibility that we have in terms of breakout spaces and our commons and all those places will be also supportive of teachers and students as well. But I agree, we don't know, and it's very difficult.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I guess we're ready for a motion. Edith, please.
motion for elementary steps. The board has reviewed and approves revisions to the elementary education specifications as presented and dated December 3rd, 2020.
Do I have a second? Kelly Zimmerman, thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the revisions, would you raise your hand, please? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay. All right, on to enrollment study, Kelly?
Kathy, were you voting in that motion as well?
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't. Yes.
Okay. Okay, now, see if I can do this more quickly this time. I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I think I've got a set of slides right here to show you. Okay, so I'd like to share highlights of the enrollment report with you. The report was also in your packet, and a copy of these slides was presented to you in your handouts this evening. As you know, annually we ask Peter Prouda, a demographer who worked for the state for a very long time, to look at our October 1 enrollment counts, and using data that he gathers from additional sources help us understand what will happen to our enrollment over the next 10 years. You also saw in the report that enrollment projection includes a review of the historical data from the previous 10 years. So a couple of the highlights. Again, it's an analysis of the historical enrollment data, but also birth data, and something called cohort survival data, meaning most simply, do those students who enroll, or who are, let me start that over, do those children who are born in Mansfield survive to become kindergartners in Mansfield? And what happens year to year as students go through the grades as well. So 3 big elements that they look at: enrollment data, birth data, and this cohort survival data. The other thing that is interesting about this year's report is that he did attempt to consider the impact of COVID-19 on school enrollment. He looked at it expressly with regards to homeschooling, because the number of homeschoolers for us this year did increase, and he projects that about half of those students will come back next year and the remaining half the previous year. That's really a guesstimate, right? But it seems reasonable to me. What he could not account for, because a demographer who's not a member of the community might not understand all of this, but he could not account for what I know to be the loss of some international families this year, and also a reduction in our preschool enrollment. Some of that initially was intentional on our part in order to ensure that our preschool numbers allowed for the appropriate physical distancing. But over time, we learned that there just weren't more preschoolers in town that were interested. We do not have a waiting list for preschool this year. And we do know that there are some families who chose not to have their children attend public school that were 3 and 4 years old. So I want you to keep that in mind, because you are going to see that the numbers are lower this year than what Peter Prouda identified when he did this last October. But I do think that it's not as stable a projection this year because of these other not accounted for elements. I will also tell you that the 2020 enrollment is only 55 students less than he projected a year ago, but that 55 has a cumulative effect over time.
So Kelly, do we?
Can I ask a question too? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Edith.
Go ahead, Edith.
Do we typically have a waiting list for the preschool?
We have some years, the last year or two we have not, but we've also had more enrollment the last couple of years than we had this year. We typically cap our enrollment somewhere between 16 and 18 students per session, and this year we were capping it at about 14 or 15.
Okay.
Susanna, did you have a question?
I think this is just anecdotal data, but I'm hopeful. In my neighborhood, houses that are for sale have sold within 24 hours.
Yeah.
3 or 4 houses recently, and I know that there are multiple families moving here. And I just think that, you know, the housing market is, again, anecdotal and hopeful. But I'm hopeful that, that some of those home sales are going to new families that will have kids. I know of at least one person who's moved up the street who, you know, they have a couple of kids and are moving in. Again, just anecdotal, but I'm just with that also as a COVID kind of effect. So hopefully that will swing things in our favor moving forward.
We do know that the state of Connecticut, or at least some areas of the state of Connecticut, are actually experiencing enrollment increases this year because of families who are choosing to leave more populated areas like cities or ring suburbs of cities and trying to move into less populated areas like they can find in Connecticut. So it'd be interesting to see if that makes its way all the way to the eastern part of the state. So a couple of other trends that are noted in this report that I thought might be of interest to you. That first off, although we've experienced some declining enrollment of late, and some years, if you look over the last 40 years where we had increased enrollment, Mansfield's pattern over the last 40 years is very similar to that of public schools across the state. So our ups and downs are not out of sync with what's happening in the rest of the state. That being said, Mansfield's current decline in enrollment is a little bit deeper than the state's, but if we had followed the state's enrollment decline levels exactly, we would have had only 45 more students than we have now. In other words, our decline is only 45 students less than would have been expected. So Prouda identified that as not significant. The birth rate in Mansfield is the thing that concerns me because the birth rate continues to decline. It's interesting to note that in the years 2000 to 2009, the average birth rate per year was 112. But in the most recent years, the average birth rate from 2016 to 19 was only 77, and in 2019, the number was actually 74. And so if this trend continues, that would be a concern. Again, that being said, when we look at that cohort survival data, what we actually find is that Mansfield's cohort survival is greater than 1, meaning that for every birth that we experience, more than 1.0 of those students enrolls in our kindergarten, suggesting that families do move into town between child's birth and the age of kindergarten, because our kindergarten classes are slightly greater than the number of births 5 years earlier. And in fact, if you look at our cohort survival data across the elementary schools, actually across all school age children in Mansfield, you will see that our cohort survival is often greater than 1, meaning that families with school age children do choose to move into Mansfield. So just, I thought, some interesting analysis this year. So what are the projections? You can see pre-K to 8 projections. In 2020, we lost 8% of our population. That population decline is expected to continue right through to 2030. Again, I'm going to caution you to these numbers this year, because if you looked at this a year ago, you would have seen different numbers. Again, when we have a blip like we did this year, it is going to have an effect on the projections because they are cumulative in nature. I thought it was also interesting to note that the other year that we saw significant decline was 2017. I think you've heard me talk of this before. That was the school year following the changes in some of the immigration policies at the federal level, which we know resulted in some loss of international families. You can see we did bounce back the next year, however, rather than experience another decline, we actually started to see a little bit of an uptick. And then we're relatively stable at only -1% in 2019. So I do think this -8% is a bit of an anomaly this year.
Kelly, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you saying that the 8.1 impacts or is going to have an impact and influence on all of the following years because of that number, or does he take a look at, well, I guess.
Yeah, let me explain that. So he's going to assume that if you're in, kindergarten through 7th grade right now, that given our cohort survival, that you and a portion of another student are going to move on through our grades. But if there are only 20 kindergartners this year, when last year there were 30 kindergartners, even though we expect those 20 plus a little more to survive each year, it builds that cumulative effect, right? Because there's a reduction each year. Does that make sense? Or there's not as much growth each year.
Okay. I think
think of it kind of like compounded interest rates, right?
Right. Okay, thank you.
This slide shows the pre-K to 4 projections. Again, I think we need to be careful with these, but not surprising based on the data that we saw on the previous slide. Again, of interest here is a greater decline this year in our pre-K to 4 than our overall decline. Could be indicative of the smaller preschool classes and the smaller incoming kindergarten class. We do know anecdotally also that there are some families that chose, because of this challenging year, not to have their kindergartners start school. And just a case in point, you'll see that the decline for the middle school this year was only 5.6. So a very different number than at the elementary level. Again, this would suggest the greater stability in the students remaining in our schools, not being so dependent upon the new students that would be entering as in preschool and kindergarten. And again, I would view these numbers somewhat cautiously. So in summary, our enrollment did decline 11% in the past 10 years. But again, very interestingly, it is a much smaller decline than other similar districts. He called out several districts in the report. I just put 3 that nearly border us here. Interesting to note that Columbia experienced a 28% decline in the past 10 years, Bolton 26%, and Tolland 31%. So our 11% decline actually was quite small. And the projected decline in the next 10 years is 18%, which equals 185 students, which is significantly greater than the decline expected in the state. But I'll just say one more time, I think we need to interpret these data cautiously because of the impact of COVID-19. So that's my report. Are there any additional questions?
Kelly, what jumps out at you when you read this? Is there anything really troubling? Is there anything encouraging? How do you, what's your gut feeling about this?
So
report?
Even though the projections report presented to us last year had numbers that were higher than this year, they still showed over the 10-year period a decline. And so I'm not overly concerned about about this. But I think what jumps out at me, or what my conclusions are, is that we should continue to expect a decline in enrollment. We've known that for some time, right? I mean, way back when we started thinking about what to do about our elementary schools, one of our factors was knowledge of declining enrollment, and that is bearing out. The thing that I do wonder about, there's data in here about housing starts in town, which have really dropped off, and the birth rate. And so as a community, and I think you're aware of this, that the community as a whole has been thinking carefully about how it presents itself to the public, and shows Mansfield as a place that people will want to live, right? A place to grow campaign. And so I do think that those efforts are going to continue to be important to the health of our schools. We don't want to see our schools become too small.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Martha?
When I was looking at the middle school 10-year projection, I mean, it's pretty, from 2020 to 2025. I mean, that's a pretty significant drop of students, from 521 to 380.
It is, and it likely would have a significant impact on our teaming structure, because I don't know how viable full academic teams at each grade level will be if our numbers drop that low. But again, the numbers last year did show a decline, but nowhere near as significant. And interestingly enough, one of the conclusions I made in last year's presentation to you was that despite the decline at the middle school, we would be able to maintain our teaming structure. So, these reports are really important to us as we do our staffing projections for budget each year. And so it's something that long term, the middle school is going to have to start to plan for.
Yeah, if it does end up with 380 students in 4 years, actually, that you worry about things like world language and offerings like that we're doing. It's a huge drop,
right?
If it plays out, we don't know, but it's, thank you.
But it's also points to why these reports are important for us, because they allow us to do that long range planning.
This projected decline, in lieu of our previous discussion about the elementary school, it has its perhaps ups.
Right. Maybe there'll be fewer students in those small classrooms.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you very much, Kelly. 21-22 budget calendar.
Sure. Also in your packet on page 19 was the budget calendar for this year. It is essentially the same process as we've used in the past. Administrators this week received materials to begin planning for the 21-22 budget. Hard to believe. It feels like we haven't really gotten this year fully underway yet. But you'll see that an overview will be presented to you at the January board meeting, followed by 2 workshops, and then approval of the budget at a February board meeting, and the town meeting is set for May 11th.
Questions? Okay, thank you, Kelly. I don't believe we have any new business. That brings us to our second hearing for visitors, and I checked with Celeste, and we've had no emails, no comments come. Any suggestions for future agenda items? All right. Now, may I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss a legal matter and invite the superintendent to join? I know the agenda indicates that we may have a personnel matter to discuss, but as I mentioned earlier, that is no longer the case. We will have to discuss that in the future. So this executive session is strictly to discuss a legal matter, and we need to invite Superintendent Lyman to join. May I have a motion?
Motion to move into executive session and invite Superintendent Lyman.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Susanna. All in favor? Would you raise your hand, please? That's unanimous. Thank you. We'll go into executive session at 8:11. And Kelly, can we get the